All right, so I talked about the story a couple weeks ago. I guess it was about a week ago now about Peru's elections and how a socialist candidate ended up winning their elections. There is no evidence of voter fraud, but still the fascist far-right candidate Keiko Fujimori is claiming election fraud, similar to how Donald Trump has done in the 2020 election, and claiming that she didn't lose, that there was widespread voting fraud based on, again, no evidence whatsoever. And so we covered the video of her basically sending the bat signal out to the CIA, and she was claiming that this is a battleground for, or that Peru is the stage for the battleground between communism and the free market, and basically just talking about how she represents the ability for U.S. imperialist interests to come and exploit the resources and labor market of Peru, and how the leftist candidate Pedro Castillo would actually be socializing those resources and using them to the benefit of the Peruvian people. And so that's the contrast between them. But again, she's claiming this widespread election fraud based on absolutely no evidence. And so we were concerned about a coup, and I drew comparisons to the coup that happened in Bolivia in 2019. That was a Trump administration-backed coup, and basically the playbook seems to be literally exactly the same. And so I thought that there was overlap between the two situations, but I honestly did not anticipate that there would be this much overlap between what is happening in Peru right now and what happened in Bolivia in 2019. So Keiko Fujimori's latest move is to try to convince Peru's current president to invite the OAS, the Organization of American States, to conduct an audit of the election. This is a dangerous move, as those who have followed the recent history of the OAS are aware. So let's read some of the details here from this opinion piece by Mark Weisbrot. And he says, "Stop the steal campaign by losing candidate in Peru must end." Ripping a page from Donald Trump, the right spreads baseless conspiracy theories in an attempt to overturn the democratic will of the people. So here's what he has to say. Peru is currently facing a serious problem following its June 6 presidential election that is similar to what we had in the US in November. The losing candidate, Keiko Fujimori, is refusing to accept the results, and like Trump, she claims without evidence that the election was stolen. Keiko Fujimori is the daughter of former dictator Alberto Fujimori. She was part of his regime and promises to liberate him from prison if she is elected, and he was convicted of his role in vicious human rights violations, including political murders and kidnappings, as well as for corruption. And Keiko Fujimori is currently facing corruption charges, including organized crime, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. So, not the best person. Her father literally was a dictator who committed widespread human rights abuses. She says she will pardon him from prison. And again, there's no basis for the allegations. They get into the details here. They say Peru's electoral authorities, international and national election observers, and other experts agree that there is no foundation for Keiko Fujimori's allegations of fraud, and that her challenges to the vote count cannot change the result. But, like Trump and his supporters in the January 6th insurrection, she is not giving up, and she has a vast majority of Peru's media, including TV news, backing her, and hundreds of retired military officers have already called for a coup d'etat if her opponent, Pedro Castillo, a leftist rural school teacher, is confirmed as president. And her latest move, and here's the key overlap between what's happening right now in Peru and what happened in Bolivia, is her latest move, taking place now, is to try to convince Peru's current president, Francisco Sagasti, to invite the Organization of American States, the OAS, to conduct an audit of the election. This is a dangerous move, as those who have followed the recent history of the OAS, especially under current Secretary General Luis Almagro, are aware. So basically, in 2019, just to recap what happened in Bolivia, he talks about it here, but essentially what happened was you had the leftist candidate, Evo Morales, and his MAS party won the election. There was no real evidence of widespread voter fraud, but still the far-right parties within that country came out and they alleged voter fraud. And so Evo Morales, anticipating that the OAS would be acting in good faith, not a great assumption, invites the OAS and says he will respect the audit that they do and the results that they find. So the Organization of American States, which is an imperialist arm of the United States, comes in and they release this report that basically alleges, yes, there was widespread voting fraud, and what they specifically say is towards the end of the election results coming in, there was a huge uptick in support for Evo Morales. Now, this is not anything controversial. It's, in fact, literally what happened in the 2020 elections here in the United States. So you had Donald Trump was leading in a lot of these different places towards the beginning, and this is just a matter of how we did the vote counts, right? So Joe Biden ended up doing better in the end results that were coming in because a lot of the mail-in votes and the way that we were calculating these votes led to that situation. It doesn't mean that there was widespread voting fraud. The fact of the matter is, the reason why there was a huge uptick at the end of the vote count was because those votes were coming in from districts that were rural districts that were heavily leaned towards Evo Morales. So it's the same thing as saying like, oh, it's suspicious that Joe Biden got a bunch of vote spikes when we started tabulating the votes in California. It's like, well, no, that's not really surprising. That's a heavily Democratic state. So of course he would be having an uptick in votes. It's the same exact situation that happened there. But still, the Organization of American States alleged voter fraud. They later came out and admitted that, yes, they were wrong. Here from the New York Times, a bitter election, accusations of fraud, and now second thoughts. A close look at the Bolivian election data suggests an initial analysis by the OAS that raised questions of vote rigging and helped force out a president was flawed. So the Organization of American States lies in this report. They say that it was a coding error. It wasn't a coding error. They repeated these lies over and over and over again, even after they had been disproven. This leads to a fascist insurrection of the government. So Janine Áñez in Bolivia takes power. They do a fascist coup, and that's what ends up happening. So it seems like it's literally exactly what happened in the situation in Bolivia. And here's what he says about what her tactics are going to be to try to delay and delay and delay until the Organization of American States steps in, or until there are other avenues or strategies that she can use in order to take power. So he says, Peru's electoral authorities have determined that Pedro Castillo received 44,000 more votes than Keiko Fujimori. However, they have not yet declared him to be president-elect, pending a resolution from Keiko Fujimori's challenges to election results. And this is a serious problem because the longer they wait, the more time Fujimori has, with the help of most of the media, to sow doubts about the legitimacy of the election and pursue various strategies, possibly including a military coup, to overturn it. One strategy of the right is to delay the official proclamation of the president-elect past July 28th, when the new president is supposed to take office. In that case, the president of the Congress could try to take office, increasing the probability of more chaos and destabilization. The electoral authorities are evaluating Fujimori's appeals, but clearly this cannot go on indefinitely. And as for the OAS, its electoral observation mission in Peru for this election has so far agreed with the Peruvian electoral authorities that the election was clean, and let's keep it that way. So he's absolutely right. We have to keep it this way, okay? We can't allow this exact same playbook to be done repeatedly, okay? It's very clear what is happening right now. Keiko Fujimori, the far-right fascist candidate, lost the election. She's butthurt about it, so she's now appealing to the United States imperialist institutions, whether it's through the CIA by appealing to anti-communist rhetoric, or whether it's through the Organization of American States, who she knows just helped in assisting in a fascist overthrow of the Bolivian government. She is just trying to stall and push these lies, as similar to how Donald Trump was, that there was widespread voting fraud when there is no evidence of widespread voting fraud. And she's hoping that the Organization of American States, or that the United States, will come and bail her out and let her lead the country in place of the rightful winner of the election, Pedro Castillo. So again, the playbook is clear. We know exactly what they're doing. We see through the bullshit. There absolutely cannot be allowed to be any sort of coup or support for a fascist insurrection in Peru. The socialist candidate won because the people supported the socialist candidate. Okay, this is democracy in action. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. Get the fuck over it. The United States, through our imperialist institutions, the OAS and the CIA, stay the fuck out of it.